Let's talk about diversity for a minute. We've heard a lot about diversity in the news. We've heard a lot about diversity in our workplaces. We hear about diversity all over. And oftentimes when we're so inundated with information, it becomes easy to forget what it fundamentally is. Like when I go talk to leaders about accountability and people give me bits and pieces of the answer, but they don't fundamentally know what accountability is, much less how to implement it. That's how it is oftentimes with diversity. People are aware of the concept, but they're connotations, their understandings may be a little bit off center and also maybe a little bit less than positive. So let's break it down and make diversity a very, very, very positive thing, because it is. Because guess what? You sitting there or standing there or on a treadmill listening to me right now, you are a unique human being. You are diverse from your brother, your sister, your mom, your siblings. Everybody, from your spouse, you are diverse. From your best friend who you have a ton of experience with, guess what? You're still a diverse individual, and that diversity is a gift. It is something that gives you a different perspective. It gives you a different voice when you come to the table. It gives you a value to add that would be lost if you weren't there. That's what diversity is. It's fundamentally recognizing and valuing the differences that make us who we are. And it goes beyond that to where we are creating inclusive places that welcome diversity instead of shun it, or much worse, tolerate it, right? Tolerance, long history with the word. It's not a great word when it comes to talk about diversity, because you don't tolerate another human being. And that's what diversity is. Diversity is not a political issue. It is not a workplace issue. It is a human issue. And each of us, as I've already shared, is diverse. And we're diverse in ways we don't even know about, which leads me to my first question. And I'm going to ask you to pause the video because I want to see where your head is. And I want you to see where your head is. So what I'd like you to say or answer, and you can put this down in the comments below the video if you want. I'm going to ask, and here's the question: how many dimensions of diversity do you think there are? Right? How many dimensions of diversity do you think there are? Pause the video, write your answer, and I'll be right here waiting for you. Welcome back. So if you said 17 or more, then you would be correct. I know for some of you, that's mind blowing, because when we talk about diversity in America, we generally stop at skin deep. What color is his skin? Or what is the texture of her hair? That's where we begin and end our conversations on diversity. But if there are 17 or more dimensions of diversity, that then leads to my bigger point, which is we are all very, very, very diverse from one another. And our concepts of diversity are fundamentally skewed. So I've got this list right here, and I'm going to bring one in because that I got from a different list because it's not on here. So it might even be 18 or more. So 1, age; 2, disability; 3, ethnicity, national origin, or culture; 4, family status; 5, gender; 6, gender identity or expression; 7, generation; 8, language; 9, life experiences; 10, organizational function and level; 11, personality type; 12, physical characteristics; 13, race; 14, religion, belief, and spirituality; 15, sexual orientation; 16, thinking/learning styles; 17, veteran status. And I'm going to toss an 18 in here, which is educational level, which I've seen on other lists, but just now I'm noticing it's not on this list. But that tells you that we are so different from each other. Like I said, from spouses, from siblings, from parents, from family members, from friends, from strangers. We are different. And that difference is what makes you you. And that's awesome. And here's the thing: when we bring that difference to work, we get more engaged employees, we get higher performing teams, we get more profitable companies, we get a host of benefits. Those are just a few of them. And that's why diversity needs to be prioritized, not just at work, but in general. But since we're talking about work, we'll stay with the work part. But when we also prioritize diversity at work, we create opportunities for people who deserve opportunities to be created for them instead of having opportunities shut down in front of them. Let me give you one quick example. There is a bias called name bias. And fundamentally, when a name, and this has been studied and shown, when someone's name is more, and I got to put these quotes up, ethnic sounding, grading right now. But when it's more ethnic sounding and doesn't fit neatly into an Anglo-Saxon expectation of a name, those resumes don't even get called in for job interviews. Here's the thing. That piece of paper represents a human being that has hopes, dreams, and desires, and is probably very much a good fit for that job, or at least a good fit for an interview for that job. But because name bias steps in and short circuits it, whether it's with the hiring manager, whether it's with a different person, it creates a moment where we stop ourselves from becoming more diverse because we can't get past our own biases. And that's why I bring it up, because name bias is very, very common. And it literally will shut down opportunities for people before they even have an opportunity to be considered for a job. And that is, if you want to talk about a meritocracy, that ain't meritocracy at all. But it happens every single day. So let's ask a question, because we're here now. Why is diversity so easy to talk about? And that's not always true, but just for grins and giggles, because everybody's got a diversity page now on their website. Everybody's talking about diversity. Everyone's saying, hey, high-fiving each other. We're diverse now. We're doing the lip service part of it. Okay, yeah. And some organizations really do follow through on the promises. Other organizations, not so much. And you got to ask yourself, where are you in the mix? But why is it so difficult for diversity to go from being an ideal to the real? For time's sake, I'll give you two reasons. One is biases, which we've already touched on one, and the other is the status quo, difficulty in changing. When we talk about biases, I'm going to ask you another question. I'm going to also ask you to pause the video and write down an answer. And then tell me if this answer shocks you or not. So how many biases are there? You could take a minute, look it up if you want. It's going to be an interesting ride, especially if you just wait, and I'll tell you in a second. I'll be here. Welcome back. Over 180 biases. So your biases literally have biases. And when we talk about biases as they relate to creating diverse and inclusive workspaces, think about this. There are two biases that you need to remember in addition to the name bias we've already discussed. One is the outgroup bias. Outgroup bias fundamentally states that you dislike, not you per se, but if you see someone outside of your group, you dislike them because you perceive them to be different from you, different and outside of your group. Then you couple that with an affinity bias, which means you prefer people that you perceive are like you and in your group. You create this less than virtuous cycle that keeps you from ever moving outside of your group to let anyone else in, which creates organizations that are monolithic and filled with one homogeneous voice that cannot adapt to rapidly changing times, doesn't fully understand its customer base, and can't fully innovate and create new things, because there just aren't enough voices at the table to bring fresh ideas, fresh insights, and fresh perspectives. See where the problems show up? So understanding that these two biases are at play, now you can step back and ask yourself, is this bias at play in me when I'm making decisions? And you may not be at the policy level. You may not be chief human resources officer, chief operating or chief executive officer. You may be a leader, a team leader, middle manager, or a senior VP, but you can create a more inclusive and welcoming environment on your team, no matter its size. Whether you've got a team of one or a team of 10,001, you can, from your position, create more equitable, more inclusive, and more welcoming spaces. And we're going to get to that now. So how can you do that? The first thing you can do is, oh, wait, I went back. I missed one. How did you not stop me? I said the second one was status quo, which speaks obviously to just, this is the way we've always done it. So we're going to continue to do it that way. We're going to continue to go forward in this way. Well, it's been good enough since I've been here, so let's keep doing that the same way. And if we've learned anything from Research in Motion with Blackberries, continuing to do the same thing once the market has shifted may not be a great value proposition. I mean, it's just there. I'm putting it out there, just food for thought. But what you want to do is understand that change is difficult, but not changing can be deadly for your organization. And I've said this before, and I will say it again. If your organization is not diverse and diversifying, you're already on the clock to having an organization that is defunct. So not diverse, not diversifying, soon to be defunct. You heard it here first, folks. So how do we actually prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion in creating a more diverse and equitable workplace? Let me give you 3 quick ways. 1, we focus on and we ensure that we are recruiting, that we're hiring, and we're promoting people from diverse backgrounds, people of color, that we are giving them not only opportunity, but allowing them to succeed. And I say this because this is an important element of it. Like we mentioned with name bias, if you're not even given the opportunity to interview, you'll never be given an opportunity to succeed. The second one is we provide training and resources for individuals. And this is on 2 fronts. The first front is we train our organizations and allow them the knowledge of the value and benefits of diversity. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken with people and I've shared the benefits of diversity only to be challenged and say, well, where do you find that? Where do you do that? And I always have to go back and do the legwork. I've got tons of resources and references now. Now what I do is I tell people, either I show them or I say, guess what? If you look it up, you'll find the same things I've found. But training your organization on the value and benefit of diversity and providing them resources to help maintain and sustain that understanding is key. But on the flip side of training and resources is making sure that your diverse groups have opportunities and resources provided to them that may be above and beyond what other groups may have. What I'm talking about here is ERGs. Many of you may be familiar with ERGs. I've spoken to African-American ERGs, Hispanic ERGs, LGBTQ ERGs. These ERGs exist to provide a safe space and to provide camaraderie when that group may feel like they're in the minority, right? So you want to make sure that training hits on both of those fronts. And last but not least, depending on where you are, no matter how big or small your team is, you can ensure that diversity is not a once a month or 3 times a month or, those calendar months are there to help remind us to celebrate diversity, but they don't dictate that we only celebrate diversity in those months. You can make sure that diversity is celebrated on your team all year long. Perhaps you have diverse members on your team already. You could go to them asking them if they'd like to share a bit of their culture. Be very aware, though, of the risk and vulnerability that they are going to experience by sharing a bit of themselves. So if they're not cool with it and they don't want to do it, be very, very open and very understanding and tell them that's fine. I completely understand, but work diversity into your conversations, work diversity into the culture of your team. Make sure that people understand that diversity is foundational and it is a hallmark of who we are and what we do. And that is how you can keep diversity prioritized, not just in a month, but throughout the year, and build it in, bake it into the culture of your team. With that said, my name is Dr. David Arrington. I am the COO of Arrington Coaching, and this has been tremendous. Until next time, make today count.